From an undisclosed locations for reasons of security and insecurity, we present to you tonight MnRTV live show with our very special guest, William Craig Reed, author and researcher, and also former Navy. We'll be talking about the Cold War III, how the U.S. Navy can defeat Putin and halt climate change. But that will be at 8:15 tonight, a U.S. Navy diver will be coming on our show, and we're very excited. And speaking of excited, I present to you my co-host right here, the madman from Montreal, Mario. How are you today, sir?
It's great to be back. It's snowing outside, lots and lots of snow, if you know what I mean. But it's okay because you're right here and we're all watching and we're all having a good, fabulous time, right there?
Yes, we are, and unfortunately, it is snowing in Montreal right now, and we're hoping for some good weather. But are you fascinated by tonight's guest that we're getting,
Always fascinated. Whenever we get
William?
guests, whenever we don't get guests, but it's always nice when we get the guest because it makes the show a little bit more spicy, more flavor, right, Dada? Aha.
That's right, and I'm enjoying my coffee right here.
All right, so shall we commence the show?
Yes,
All right, well, it is technically commenced, but anyhow, this is me, this is Mario, right?
yeah,
That's
that's who you
Robert, of
are.
course.
The-
But now I'm gonna be switching on over. So you won't see me anymore. You'll be hearing me until for a good half an hour-ish until the guest comes on, right?
Right.
So here, here, let us go and start with the
And this
intro.
was brought to you by the Montreal Anti-Illuminati Task Force.
All right, so
Okay,
now
hit it.
here, let us commence with the blog, the MnR production, Mariolaur.blogspot.ca. It's right there. Beautiful picture of Montreal, beautiful Montreal, right? Well, it's
That's
snowing,
right.
like I said. Now here, right here, there's a description, and we start in 2006. Oh man, 10 years of MnR. And if you do not see this, just refresh, and deals will appear. And then, there's right underneath Chatango where everybody, I mean everybody out there, the millions in attendees, right there, or you could all interact with us and ask the guest some questions and we'll take it down and we'll send it to the guest. So let's get us ready for the pictures of the week right there that are posted on both Google Plus's Conspiracy Talk and Facebook, right?
That's right. Exactly. And there it is. And here it is, the ISIS snake, the snake that's taking over the world, or so seems to be, funded by the Americans right there. And what's funny is it's a snake, right? And a snake, isn't that what the devil is in the Garden of
Yes.
Eden?
Yes. And look where it's coming out of the egg, United States of America. Beautiful country, great people. It's coming out of the American egg, biting the world because it is created by the CIA, right? Because Hillary Clinton said so. All right.
Well,
So that's in a
she's part of
nutshell.
it. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Next picture.
Suivant.
Being considered crazy by those who are still victims of cultural conditioning is a compliment. Yeah, so I guess we're considered crazy for knowing what the heck's going on in the world. Are we not?
Yes, but at least we have open minds there, Robert. Right?
Yes, yes, we do. We have open minds and we're always researching and looking into what in the world's going on, folks.
Because we want to know the truth, because the truth is out there. And we investigate here on the MNR TV live show. We investigate it to bring you the best. Suivant, next.
People are prisoners of their phones. That's why they are called cell phones. I like that. Yeah, that's inside a cell phone, right? And all of us were in the cell phone right here, aren't we?
Yeah, suivant, next.
That's a funny laugh. All right, give a man some corn, feed him for a day, teach him how to grow corn. He kills you and steals your land. That picture is 1,000 words, right?
It's always 1,000 words. That's why we emphasize and show you what we're talking about there, and then that that everything has been stolen. Because everything's a
Exactly.
great big illusion.
A what?
Illusion.
Yes, yes, an illusion.
Everything's been stolen from everybody. So we've on next.
Why is hemp illegal to grow in over 25 states? Hemp makes more fiber, fuel, medicine, and food than any other plant. An acre of hemp produces 33 gallons of oil, 3 tons of protein, and 30 tons of fiber per year.
Now you know why. You know why it's illegal in those 25 states, because big pharma says so. They're like the mobsters. They're the mobsters of whatever, all the doctors and all of the industry, the greatest industry. They're the ones that are controlling it all.
Yes. All right,
You,
next
you
one.
understand that, Robert?
I understand exactly what you're
All
talking
right.
about. All paid. Some paid all. Some made $39.5 billion of the Halliburton, and that is Dick Cheney.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I can't see more there. There's nothing
No.
for me to say right there. There's it's out of it's right there. Word says a picture says it a million words there,
A
right
thousand
there,
words. Yeah.
billion, whatever. Sweep on next, and this next picture, it's from you. You posted it up, brother. Da-da.
Yes. Research the dangers of vaccines. Refuse prescription medications. Question your doctor. The medical industry cares about money, not your health. It's true. Every time you go see the doctor, or most doctors, unless you have a good family doctor, an old doctor, most of them just what do? You tell them your problem. Oh yeah, okay. They write you a prescription, and that's it. Get away, and then you take pills, and it makes you worse than it is. Then you get something else. You have to go back to get pills for something else. It's like an old car. This breaks, that breaks, but that's what pills do. Most of the pills, and because of that, you get nothing solved. So then the original problem is solved, but then you have four more problems on top of it. While they make money and they so slowly soft kill you.
Now, the only thing I have to say about this picture is, you remember what we spoke about the hemp? It's the same thing that applies to this picture. The same thing applies. The industry, the pharmaceutical industry. They're big. They're big. They're like big mobster. That's
And
that's what
and
all comes down to.
and also look, there right there's Baphomet.
And what does Baphomet have right there? This
He has
logo.
yeah, right there, this logo. Yeah, exactly, the logo. So we know where that comes from.
The pharmaceutical logos. So we've on
Exactly.
next. Here's the Clintons, Hillary.
Back before they married, when they were just cousins, don't you find they look the same? Wow, they look like they're in the same family.
Yeah, they're probably from the same regions somewhere
Ar-
in the States.
I think Arkansas, from the the southern places.
Yeah, could very well be. So we've on
From the
next.
what should look like what a missile looks like. Yeah, right. In the Pentagon, right?
Mm-hmm. See the
Not too.
plane, you don't see the wings, nothing. They blow that thing down.
Yeah, exactly. So false flag right there, guys. It's right there, the false flag.
Inside job. How about some Kermit?
Okay, wait, hold on, because I was just in the chat room. Set apart. Does anyone know how strong you have to be in this wicked world to stay set apart? When you find truth and refuse to continue in wickedness, you lose your friends, you lose family. People call you crazy or the devil, all because they refuse to research. Oh well, sounds like something I go through all the time with family members and friends. Isn't it crazy?
Yes, yes, it's very true.
It is. At least in my part. I don't know about you, but it just I don't know. It's just not good.
The truth will always get people fighting. That's the problem. So we've on next.
Welcome to the largest prison population on earth, also known as the land of the free and corrupted.
Yeah, because we are in prison. That's why. We're in big
Isn't it like a
prison.
prison planet, no?
Yes, it is. It's a huge prison, this planet. So we've on next.
People will get mad at you for speaking the truth rather than being mad at the people who lied. Yeah, well, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah, they get mad at us if we say the truth, but not the people who lie.
because they like the liars that say the lies. That's why. That's why politicians are so loved. Because they say the lies and people love the liars.
And us, well, forget that.
As we're saying the truths. And people, there's only a
Yeah.
handful of people that want to know about the truth. Well, there's also the millions out there who are watching our show. Can't forget about them. They're there after the truth. Right there? So
So
we've on next.
exactly. When you post some truth, then these guys start living negative comments because they don't want people to start making it up.
That those are the trolls, right?
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
trolls. The trolls that we have to kick out of both conspiracy stuff, but more on Facebook. I find Facebook is heavy for the trolls, them government trolls.
People in the chat room, could you see it? Because I just got a message saying, what is happening? Show's not starting, having trouble. So people in the chat room, if you can't see us or you can't hear us, please let us know.
Hmm. So we've on next.
What if I told you they were filling your head with useless sports, stats, celebrity, gossip, and flavor of the week, fashion to distract you from discovering the fraud, corruption, and theft that actually impact your everyday life? Yeah, exactly. That's how life is, no?
Yes, and that's why we're here, and we're going to dissect what is corrupted, and we're going to tell you, we're going to try and explain it to you there to make sure that you understand just exactly what is going on in this world of big corruption, right there.
Exactly.
So that's all the pictures on the conspiracy talk. And speaking of conspiracy talk, right here she is, and
The conspiracy
there's
talk
there's all the
on
members,
Facebook.
61. And if people out there, new folks out there, you know who you are. You want to know how to watch us, live. Just come here. You click right there, and it will take you back to our blog. You can come and watch us live. But people out there, be nice, be good. Don't spam. Don't be a government shit paid troll and write down garbage, lots and lots of garbage on here, because we will track you down and we'll get you out, because there's zero tolerance for government paid trolls there.
And there's a lot of government paid trolls.
But feel free to join in and have your say, because we really want to have your say. And here's what's happening in the Wonderful Chatango right there. See, you go back.
Yes.
All right, so now we're going to commence. Hey there, Paula. Hey, Paula. Hey there, Paula. Nice having you back. All right, so now let us start. We're going to start the news, right? Because that's what people want to know. People don't want to go to the CNBC and CNN. They rather come and hear what we gotta say here on the MNR TV live show, because that we want to know, we want to tell ya the truth there. So now here we're gonna start with the Panama Papers.
What are the Panama Papers? A guide to history's biggest data leak. What is Mossack Fonseca? How big is it? And who uses offshore firms? Key questions about one of the biggest data leaks. Kubrick to Caldwell. Panama Papers exposes offshore dealings.
But
How
I
the
honestly,
world's rich and famous hide their money offshore. All the Panama Papers revelations so far, and that's been pretty much something big. And I think Putin's involved, isn't he?
I think they're after this man. I think the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers are after this man because he's not giving what he doesn't want to do what they want him to do. So they're going to try and make him look bad, because that's the dirt. That's how dirty they play dirty. Them people. See right here.
The Panama Papers are an unprecedented leak of 11.5 million files from the database of the world's fourth largest offshore for Mossack Fonseca. The records were obtained from an anonymous source by German newspapers who shared them with the International Consortium and investigative journalists. The ICIJ then shared with a large network of international partners, including The Guardian. What do they reveal? The documents show the myriad ways in which the rich can exploit secretive offshore tax regimes. 12 national leaders are among 143 politicians, their families, and close associates from around the world, known to have been used for offshore tax havens. A 2 billion trail leads all the way to Vladimir Putin, the Russian president's best friend. A cellist named Sergei Volodygin is the center of the scheme, in which money from Russia state bank is hidden offshore. Some of it ends up in a ski resort where in 2013 Putin's daughter Katerina got married. There's a lot of corruption going on.
We thought here, it was just here in Quebec that there was lots of corruption. But it looks like wherever there's big people like David Cameron, there's always some corruption that happens.
All the time there is. All the time. It never stops. Okay.
Look at
next.
this. Look
Thank
at
you.
this. Look at this. This is for my good friend, my good buddy, Paula. Cypress, right there. Cypress. He knows what I'm talking about there. Cypress.
Cyprus and the Cyprus. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I don't know exactly.
It's just a little thin there. Just had to say
Yeah.
Cypress.
The hidden owners. Yeah, that's making quite a round. Eh? The Panama Papers.
Yes.
And that's for the latest scandal, because something else is going to happen. They're showing that, but something else is in the works. This is a big distraction.
Maybe they'll
in my
take down the economy. No?
They'll what?
Maybe they'll take down the economy. Maybe they'll take down the economy.
It could very well be, for sure. Yeah, so don't forget, all the links will be up to the show once the show is recorded under the description, so you guys could see it. Because we don't want you to believe us. Just look at us. Just look at the show,
Yes, and then you could see all the proof, because people want them proof. And now people are going to say out there, yeah, but you people up in Canada, what the hell do you care? You there's no such thing as, you're not involved in the papers, the Panama Papers, but we are right there.
Exactly. Canada Bank fined 1.1 million for failing to report suspicious dealings. And there it is. The Federal Anti-Money Laundering Agency has levied a 1.1 million penalty against an unnamed Canadian bank for failing to report a suspicious transaction and various money transfers. It's the first time the Ottawa-based Financial Transactions and Report Analyst Centre of Canada, known as FinTrack, has penalized the bank, and it is being billed as a warning to thousands of other businesses. Generally, the center tracks can cash flows linked to a terrorism, money laundering, or other crime by sifting through millions of pieces of data annually from banks, insurance companies, security dealers, money service business, real estate brokers, casinos, and others. In this case, FinTrack spokesperson Darryl Gibbs said he cannot legally discuss of the bank's infractions and the federal agency exercising its discretion to withhold the identity of the financial institution which recently paid the penalty of $1,154,670. So big corruption there also in Canada, not just here, folks.
And somewhere down here, somewhere exactly down here, it says something about the Panama Papers. I don't know. I know I've seen it before. Maybe I missed it. Do you see it somewhere? Maybe right here. No, that's not there. Oh, right there, right there. You see that? That's it. You see right here. This one right there.
The penalty announcement comes. Yeah, the penalty announcement comes amid heightened security of Canadian financial institutions due to the publication of leaked files known as the Panama Papers about dubious global dealings. We're gonna have to see what's gonna happen next with that.
There's something very, very fishy. There's something very, very fishy about all that.
And apparently there's a Montreal lawyer that was involved in Panama as well. That's very possible. That's
and Lionel Messi, the soccer player with FIFA. So there's something very, very big happening with that.
I agree.
All right.
So
now we're going to talk about the next one is right here. Look at this. Nobody talks about this.
Bombs went off. Bombs went off in the basement levels of towers on 9/11. Yeah, I've heard about that before. Many video clips exist to this day which prove bombs did in fact explode in the basement levels of the towers and possible building 7 on 9/11. I've seen those videos also. 16 years later, and we're still talking about it. Unreal, which needs to be talked about, never to be forgotten, obviously. According to a number of eyewitnesses report, bombs went off in basement levels of both towers 1 and 2, and possibly also in basement levels of building 7. Michael Scott, an officer, this worker, told an ABC7 reporter on September 11, 2001, that she ran down the steps to the lobby after the upper part of the tower exploded. When Scott finally descended to the lobby, she said everything was torn up and that a woman already had her face blowing off. Oh my God, from an apparent blast. Mike Benefante, another eyewitness who managed to escape the exploding tower with his life, recounted the events moments after it happened to the same ABC7 reporter. Visibly shaken, Benefante said, "I'm standing next to John, and then the top of the tower blew up, and it just exploded. Started coming down, and I was running for my life." Benefante said that he quickly slid under a truck to safety when everything just went black. ABC7 also reported federal agents with guns standing outside the federal buildings, clearing everyone out.
So that's here. I mean, we don't have to get into the big details. But
no, like skin hanging off the bodies, no.
But you know what? This is proof right there. The 9/11 was an inside job, and people out there don't care, but we care. That's why we're doing the show. Right there?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, for sure. Okay, next.
All right, the next one is coming up, and what would this show be without getting something like, that's very hot out there? Just let me hold on there, Robert. Let me just make it a little bit bigger, so like that you can see it, and it's right here, CERN.
CERN is seeking secrets of the universe or maybe opening the portals of hell. Operators of Large Hadron Collider gear up to battle conspiracy theories.
That's us,
Ooh.
conspiracy theories.
Okay, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, or CERN, is gearing up for another run at smashing particles together to unlock the secrets of the universe. This means anticipating a new round of conspiracy theories that its real aim is to blast open a gateway for apocalyptic demons. Never mind that a few years ago, CERN scientists discovered a particle crucial to the understanding of physical matter. Many internet commentators went to talk about how CERN's Large Hadron Collider, a 17-mile subterranean loop that smashes particles at the speed of light, may breach another dimension and unleash the forces of darkness. One commentator fretted about how best to confront them. Do we buy guns and ammo? Others zeroed in on the statue of Shiva, a Hindu god of destruction, on CERN's Geneva campus. It might also have caused last year's deadly quake in Nepal. One blogger thought, also, what about the CERN's logo that looks a lot like the 666 sign of the Antichrist? We should be very scared about CERN, read the headline of an opinion piece published by the Daily Reporter in Coldwater, Michigan, that suggested the organization could destroy our universe. Last summer, internet chatter about CERN's role in hastening doomsday spiked. It got to the point where they really need to be some kind of intervention, said Kate Cahy, who oversees social media at CERN. In September, CERN quietly posted a sort of frequently asked questions. But this one had a unique working title, Surreal FAQ. In the deadpan rejoinder, CERN said its activities won't open a door to another dimension. Shiva's a gift from the Indian government, also represents the life force, and we have lots of statues in our logo. It is meant to represent particle accelerators, not Satan. Mrs. Kelly thinks this helped curb the clamor at the pages pops up in searches performed by skeptics. Yet, according to Michael Birkin, he says that CERN has demonstrated a special ability to attract the conspiracy culture. At any time you have forces that are high energy and invisible, like those in the Large Hadron Collider, they lend themselves to these kinds of interpretation. What's your take on this?
In a nutshell, we did a show on these. In a nutshell, right? But this
Yeah, we
is it
did.
explains it all, and it's like more up to date, and you don't have to read in all of these. But I'll just go down so like that in case people want. They could just pause the video and just read it. Okay.
Exactly.
Look at
We
this.
did so much time last year.
Look at this. This is like, wow, it's a great one, and we don't want to read it all because we haven't got all evening. But you know where this one comes from. Look at that, the Wall Street Journal. Look at that.
The Wall Street Journal, the granddaddy of them all, right?
Yes, the big data of them all is right there. Hmm. I just love when we get something on CERN out there. From CERN,
Oh yeah,
we're going to be going to from CERN, we're going to be going down to Fukushima, right there.
Japan just fired up what might be the solutions to Fukushima's leaking nuclear reactor problem.
See, we're not
Finally,
going
we
to.
have to have a solution.
But the point of this news beat right here is the fact that it's still leaking. It's still leaking. It's leaking in the ocean. And then after how many years? 5 years. And now they're coming up with something to the solution to the problem. That's the point there, Robert. And we're not going to go deep inside, but I'll still just post it. And if you see something that looks good, juicy for our audience out there, it's right here. You know, you could just look at it and then see for yourself that it's still licking, and people don't want to talk about it. The mainstream media never wants to talk about this. They rather talk about the Panama Papers. So
Well, both of them are serious, but I do think that this is a bit more serious because this deals with life and it deals with planet Earth, how it's being ruined, and chemicals and nuclear waste, which I think is more important than anything else. But no one talks about it because they'd rather watch Kim Kardashian
yes,
and Jerry Springer.
because that's more interesting there, but it's not. I don't know if you could see the writing on this, Robert, but I don't know if
No,
this. You know what? I don't think this is that important, but I'll still post it for the people out there that they could see this. You see it?
genetically modified ants could replace honeybees, claim Monsanto expert. That's true.
But hold
That is a
on there.
possibility.
Hold on there, Robert. Look at the date. I don't know if this is if
April
this is
1st, yeah. You shouldn't get news from on April 1st because everything's an April Fool's joke. So,
that they
but it's
want
a
to.
possibility. I mean, look what they're working on now. I mean, we've done shows about genetically modified beings that they're doing.
But maybe this is
So,
like a reverse psychology for April Fools. That's why I don't know. I don't know. That's why I show it.
yeah, well, you have to show it, obviously.
Okay, the next one. FEMA.
To conduct full-scale exercise at New Hampshire, I believe, right? NH
Mhm.
nuclear power plant Friday. State and local officials within a 10-mile radius of the nuclear power plant will participate in the full-scale exercise.
You know what
And
this
it's
means. You know what this means.
like
It
Jade
means
Helm last year, right?
if ever there's some kind of an exercise, yeah, there's something up. So don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if something something comes up, some kind of a shooting or that, or an explosion.
New Hampshire, under authority from the Department of Homeland Security at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission FEMA, will be conducting a full-scale exercise at the next era Energy Seabrook Station nuclear power plant this Friday. This exercise allows federal teams to examine the ability of the participating local, state, and utility officials to protect the health and safety of the nuclear power of the nuclear public living near the Seabrook nuclear power plant in the event of a radiological release, according to a FEMA spokesperson. FEMA will observe and evaluate governmental response. The NRC will observe and evaluate the on-site performance of Seabrook nuclear power plant staff. So, yeah, and there's more information right there because this is a long article, but if you guys are more interested, the links will be up to the show, and you could investigate more if this is what interests you. Don't you agree?
I definitely agree.
Great, great, that's good.
I mean,
But
I
it's
mean, now this one is a little bit outrageous.
touching robots can arouse humans, studies find. Researchers discovered that touching the areas where a robot's genitals or buttocks be would be provoked a psychological response in humans. Well, how do these robots look?
There you go. That's the robot.
And we're supposed to be excited over this?
Something ridiculous. This is ridiculous that people get excited over robots. They're not
I know.
humans. I don't know what this planet's coming to there, Robert.
California researchers have established that an intimate caress of a humanoid robot can produce a psychological response in humans. They challenged volunteers with a robotic creature less than 2 feet high that possessed eyes, ears, torso, legs, arms, and a voice, and a chat up line which in come hither invitations. Sometimes I'll ask you to touch my body, and sometimes I'll ask you to point to my body, told volunteers. It was found that a touch where the robot's buttocks or genitals would be produce a measurable response of arousal in the volunteer human, the scientists report. Our work shows that robots are a new form of media that is particularly powerful. It shows the people response to robots is primitive social way, says Jeremy Lee, a mechanical engineer at the Stanford University in California. Hmm. All I have to say is hmm, the thin line between man and machine is man and machine are merging slowly.
Soon we're going to be obsolete as
So
humans.
no sex, please. They're robots, says Japanese android firm. So which one's the robot here?
I guess it's this one on the right, and this one
Okay,
on the left is a human.
because I don't know. I mean, it has to look like a human, the robot.
Most definitely. But I don't know what's going on in this world. Honestly, I honestly don't understand. Someone please explain this to me on beautiful Chitango right there.
Yeah, there
Look
is
at that.
explained. It's being explained right now by Polly. He explained,
So, and we're getting to that time. Or just a build. Let me just make sure that yes, everything has been covered except for just one thing there. Look at this. Now, when I saw this almost blew the socks right off my feet there. Look at this.
flying humanoid alien sighted over Phoenix. Alien astronaut lands in spacecraft. UFO bloggers claim bizarre video. I do agree. UFOs and alien hunters have made one of the most bizarre UFO claims ever after viewing a UFO sighting video that emerged online recently. According to conspiracy theorists, a short clip submitted recently to the mutual UFO network MUFON shows a flying humanoid alien dressed in a spacesuit over Phoenix in Arizona. The alien appeared to be landing from space. According to an unnamed witness in a report filed in the mutual UFO network MUFON database as case 75606, the sighting occurred when he was riding a mountain bike on Javina Trail, South Mountain in Phoenix, Arizona on April 2nd, 2016.
And if you look very closely, I think it's Iron Man. That's what I think. I honestly think Iron Man. I was looking at the video and it looked like Iron Man to me.
But Iron Man doesn't exist.
That's what we think. That's what we think.
So that means we should get Tony Stark on our show.
See right there. Look at this. Look at this.
Where is that?
See right there. Alien and high tech. This stupid bar toolbar. Right there. You see?
I see. I see. That is really something else, eh? What they saw. I'd have to go on the MUFON website and go in the case file and see what they talk about an entity. It looks like a Dark Knight satellite. It definitely looks like one of those humanoid UFOs. A skeptic suggests it was a hoax. According to a skeptic, it could have been a kite fixed to a drone. Hmm. I don't know. Somebody will go to a lot of trouble. There it is. There's the video. It does look like an Iron Man, the old Iron Man, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, go up, go up. I saw something. Oh,
Yes.
no, before the video, right there. But some conspiracy theories suggest it was a 3D projection designed to test Project Bluebeam, an alleged plan by world governments to inaugurate the exceptionally evil New World Order (NWO) by simulating the second coming of Jesus to deceive millions of Christians across the globe. That's a high possibility. Also, we've talked about that before.
Yes, we
Okay,
always talk
do
about
not get fooled by this. Do
and
not get fooled by
that takes care of that. And you know, when we talk aliens and UFO, can only mean one thing. The rubber. Hey, dada. It means only one thing.
It does. Chris is coming on, and then we'll get our guest, William Reed, to come on the show and talk about Cold War III.
Yes, and I urge everyone out there to watch this intently, because I'm telling you, people out there, this is very, very interesting, and I know he has always very good things to talk about there. So I think we should call
we
it.
come back. Yeah. We'll have William Craig Reed on our show.
So here she is. Here she is. Here's Trish.
David E. Singer and Eric Schmidt, reporters with the New York Times News Service, have verified what I predicted months ago in my new book, called WAR 3. Russia is preparing for an atom war with the United States and NATO countries. The Russian spy ship, Yenter, which carries 2 deep-sea minisubs, has been spotted off the United States east coast. The minisubs are capable of cutting undersea cables that carry massive amounts of internet traffic, including trillions of dollars of international financial transactions. The U.S. Navy monitored the Yenter as it traced a line in the ocean that follows the direction of these sensitive undersea cables. They have also detected several Russian nuclear attack submarines operating near known cable locations, and apparently also trying to locate hidden government and military cables that carry top secret information. The level of activity, said a senior European diplomat, is comparable to what we saw in the Cold War. Rear Admiral Frederick J. Rogue, commander of the United States Navy, submarine fleet, echoed these concerns in saying, "I am worried every day about what the Russians may be doing. I was a former U.S. Navy diver and submariner, and am the only author to write in detail about the top-secret Cold War program called Ivy Bells." The book Blind Man Bluff exposed this operation, but my book, Red November, is the only one that includes actual interviews with U.S. Navy saturation divers and spook espionage technicians who were involved in these operations. It also includes far more technical and operational details about these missions than any book written, and the only interviews with the survivors of several Ivy Bells missions were in submarines, were nearly destroyed or caught by Soviet forces. In one of these missions, considered the most daring and decorated of the Cold War, a nuclear submarine was trapped on the ocean floor for 4 days and came within a breath of not coming home. Experts believe that the success of the Ivy Bells missions helped bring the Cold War to a close. Many of these same experts now believe that similar missions, being conducted by both sides, have reignited a new Cold War that is quickly turning hot. Should one side or the other tap into or cut a vital communications cable, this act of war would not only wreak havoc on financial and business systems, but could push the United States and Russia to a brink not seen since the Cuban Missile Crisis. The risk here is that any country could cause damage to the system and do it in a way that is completely covert, without having a warship with the cable-cutting equipment right in the area, said Michael Sekerist, a former project manager for a Harvard Met research project. The real concern is that the Russians are snooping in deep waters where a cut in a cable might take weeks to find and repair. Moreover, if the Russians can locate a military or government cable and tap into like the US did during Cold War Ivy Bells missions, they would have an open book on highly sensitive and secret United States and NATO communications. These undersea cables are so important that the Department of Homeland Security lists their landing areas near New York, Miami, and Los Angeles as critical infrastructure. For my latest book, called WAR 3, I traveled to the Arctic and spent several days under the polar ice cap aboard the nuclear submarine USS Connecticut. This attack sub was involved in secret training operations in preparation for potential conflicts with Russian submarines in the Arctic. Putin's recent moves there, including strong-arming several UN nations into grant Russia exclusive economic rights to all the resources in 2 massive Arctic locations, one near the North Pole, have Pentagon experts worried. Russia has spent $2.4 billion in recent years to fortify and the Northern Sea route, which runs from the Bering Strait near Alaska, along the Russian coastline, all the way to Europe. A decade ago, only a half dozen ships traversed this route. As of this year, thousands now do, as the route saves 40% in time and cost for merchant ships as compared to other routes. What is Putin's ultimate plan? As I detail in my book, called WAR3, the U.S. is in a currency war with Russia and China. The U.S. stock market felt the sting of a devastating blow delivered by the Chinese in October 2015, and should prepare for a second hard right to the jaw in early 2016. The Chinese are vying for a favorable vote from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, to allow the yuan to become a reserve currency. The IMF meets again in April 2016. As for Russia, Putin's moves in Ukraine, Iran, Syria, and the Arctic are all motivated by a strong desire to pull the rug on the US petrodollar and bolster the ruble. Heretofore, based on deals cut between OPEC countries and the United States in 1973, all energy trades were done with United States dollars, petrodollar. This has propped up the US economy for decades. If Putin has his way, he could propel the US toward another great recession. Russia's president recently negotiated a $400 billion natural gas deal with China, and for the first...
All right, thank you, Trish. Thank
She
you
had
very
a long talk about all of this, hasn't she?
Oh yeah, but you know, it's like very, like I said earlier, very, very interesting. Our guest today, right?
Yeah, and now is, oh boy, now I have to try and get him on our show live on the MnRTV live show, and let's talk about who you are and tell my audience exactly who you are and what you've written.
Hi, William Craig Reed. I'm a New York Times best-selling author. Written 7 or now 8 books with the new one. The 7 Principles of Neuron Leadership, which talks about leadership from a very unique perspective and has some pretty stellar people who've been interviewed for this book. And the proceeds benefit veterans, so a very unique situation.
That's wonderful. So, are you able to talk about one of your books called Cold War III?
Yes, Cold War III actually predicted many of the things we have seen and are seeing happen in the world. This is about how the U.S. Navy has invented a new technology that can convert ordinary salt water into any kind of fuel and can potentially defeat some of our enemies, such as Putin and Russia, China, and Iran, but also can mitigate the argument regarding climate change because it actually extracts carbon from the ocean. So that's what this book is about.
Do we have to worry about China's submarine as being a threat?
Absolutely. In 2010, China actually launched an unarmed ballistic missile from one of their submarines 35 miles off the coast of Los Angeles. They have dramatically improved their naval fleet capabilities, including nuclear missile ballistic submarines, and they are building what the Navy is calling sand islands, basically building islands in the middle of the China Sea. And they're doing this to control sea routes, which is where 90% of the world's trade goes across the ocean, very threatening to the United States and other nations.
So when you were younger, or I don't know if you still are, you were in the military. You were military Navy, am I correct?
That's correct. I served as a U.S. Navy diver many years ago, also for submarines. Some of the missions we did were in concert with Navy SEAL teams, so we operated closely with them. Still have quite a few friends who are either in the Navy as SEALs or have retired, and really enjoyed my time in the Navy very much.
Okay, so any submarines?
Very dangerous. So in the same week that Putin invaded Ukraine, he locked up through strong-arming nations with the United Nations over 1 trillion tons of oil and gas in the Arctic. He did it again the following year. He is controlling the routes that go along Russia all the way over to the European countries and then over to Asia. It's called the Northern Sea Route. And it's becoming much more used because the ice is melting. We went from a half a dozen ships to over 1,000 ships this year. He controls that route, and he therefore controls the economy that comes from that route. Could be a very threatening situation going forward.
Is it true that he's fighting ISIS and he wants to destroy them, or is this just propaganda?
He wants to control the Middle East, and he wants tension in the Middle East, because if Middle Eastern OPEC countries are having difficulty delivering oil to their customers, then they will turn to Russia to deliver that oil to those countries, and that bolsters the ruble and therefore Putin's agenda. So don't believe that Putin is trying to mitigate tensions in the Middle East. He's trying to increase them.
Not a very nice man.
He's a very smart man.
Yeah. Other question is, how close were we to World War III in 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis?
We actually came within moments. As I wrote in my book, Red November, I was the first to interview the not only captains, but also officers aboard several of the Foxtrot submarines. There were 4 that came over from Russia, Soviet submarines, and approached the Cuban islands with blockade. They carried each a nuclear-tipped torpedo, a nuclear warhead on those torpedoes. And all 4 came within moments of firing those torpedoes, potentially destroying a dozen of our warships in the blockade and triggering World War III. My father spearheaded a top-secret communications program to help find those submarines, and he briefed President Kennedy at the White House on how to find those submarines. And Kennedy used that to back down Khrushchev. So that's the truth of what happened. That full story is in that book, Red November.
So it's like your father helped prevent World War III.
Well, he always used to joke that he either helped prevent it or he almost started it. Because once we found those submarines and backed them into a corner, that's when they almost fired those torpedoes. So could have gone either way.
Speaking of those torpedoes, does the U.S. have secret weapons to fight Putin?
The U.S. does have some secret weapons. I do talk about some of those in my book, Cold War III. We have some new capabilities built by DARPA that are little robots that can sense underwater submarines or ships and have small robots then follow those particular platforms. But what's most dangerous is actually on the Russian side. They've invented a submarine called the Khabarov, which carries a status 6 torpedo, 6 of them, 100 megaton torpedoes that can go over 4,000 miles all the way across the ocean at almost 100 knots and take out an entire city, if not an entire area. Very, very dangerous.
Oh, that doesn't sound too good at all. Not at all, you know. How wealthy is Putin and his money? Where does he get it all from? How come he's like one of the richest men in the world?
He actually created what we now know today as Gazprom, which is Russia's oil and gas giant, if you will. It's one of the largest companies in the world. And he did that by actually illegally acquiring the asset of other oil and gas companies in Russia and essentially sending the leaders of those organizations to jail. He orchestrated a coup, if you will, and that put billions and billions of dollars into his bank accounts, made him one of the wealthiest men in the world, and it made Gazprom one of the richest companies, but it also bolstered Russia's entire gross domestic product and the incomes of millions and millions of Russians.
Are we in Cold War III right now as we speak?
Without question. We are fighting against Russia in Syria. They are backing al-Assad, and we are backing rebels to try and take out al-Assad. And in fact, that's where I came from. We armed rebels. The CIA armed rebels in Syria to fight al-Assad that came from the Libyan Islamic Fighters Group, the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, that are now known as ISIS. So we actually armed and created and trained them. That's the truth. We also were in Ukraine. We have been for some time. And we're in an economic war, a currency war against our US dollar in many ways. I talk about all of this in my book, Cold War III.
So in effect, the CIA created ISIS.
That's correct, yes. In fact, that began when we used the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group to take out Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. That's where they came from. And the CIA armed and trained that group to do that. And then later utilized that group again in Syria. And even John Kerry said, we know about 25% of these rebels are what he called bad guys. Well, that's 25,000 of these rebels that are now today ISIS terrorists.
But now, when we see like ISIS territory, it's like a whole new like it's almost like a religion. It's almost like a new society. Did the CIA foresee this, or is it like a monster that went out of control, like a, if you will, a Frankenstein experiment that went terribly wrong?
More like the latter. Nobody anticipated that would be the case. You know, again, there are times when the U.S. has tried to do the right thing and tried to ensure our economic well-being, tried to ensure our freedoms and so on. But there are times when the U.S. has done things that haven't turned out the way they planned. In this case, that was one of those things.
Is there any danger that they're actually going to do the caliphate I heard by like 2020, they have like a 5-year plan from Al-Qaeda, like a 20-year plan, and now they're in the phase of facing off against the West and in fact controlling the whole world eventually by 2020? Is there any danger to that, or is this a prefabrication of their imagination?
There certainly is a danger to that. It really depends upon how well they continue to be financed. They have shown that they have a tremendous amount of capability and certainly a tremendous amount of passion. And they are also extremely well trained and organized and very well financed. So as long as that continues, then certainly there is the potential that they could continue to expand and continue to control very large areas in the Middle East.
So why do you think they took out Saddam Hussein?
Very clear why that happened. People think it was weapons of mass destruction. It was not. Saddam chose to stop accepting U.S. dollars for oil trade and instead accept the euro. And we warned him not to do that because it is economically harmful to the U.S. for countries not to accept your energy trades. And that was in the year 2000. And of course, 3 years later, in 2003, we rolled tanks across his desert. And by 2004, Iran was again accepting U.S. dollars for oil trade.
That is something. uh, with the petrodollar, how safe is the petrodollar, and will it ever fall? Will it ever cause economic collapse of the United States?
It very well could, and it is looking more and more like it might, because, as I mentioned earlier, we are in an economic war with Russia and China. 72, early 72, 73, we negotiated a deal with Saudi Arabia and the OPEC countries to only have U.S. dollars. That's the way it has been. But now China and Russia have negotiated a $400 billion gas deal, not in U.S. dollars. And more, they are encouraging OPEC countries like Syria and like Iran to begin accepting rubles or yuan instead of U.S. dollars. If that continues, it could seriously threaten the U.S. economy.
Now, is it what? And Russia decide to go at war, like physical war, with the United States? Would the United States be in a big problem right there? Could it defend itself against these two power behemoths?
It would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, for that to happen, because we are no longer capable of defending ourselves against even one of them adequately, let alone both. Now, it's unlikely they would go to full war with us, but they could see the sea lanes, and that's what we're seeing. So the Chinese are threatening the sea lanes in the South China Sea and in other areas. Putin is threatening the sea lanes across the northern sea route, which is becoming more and more used because it saves about 40% in time and dollars versus going through other routes. And it's obvious what they are building this submarine I mentioned with the Status 6 torpedoes, 6 of them. There are 6 main sea routes that carry 90% of the world's energy trade, oil and gas, through those 6 sea routes. If he takes those out or threatens to, that could be serious problems in the U.S.
What happened to the U.S.? Wasn't the U.S. like the most powerful nation on earth? How did it become like weaker and weaker? Was it done by an inside job of some kind?
Yes, and that's exactly what I talk about in my latest book, The 7 Principles of Neuron Leadership. I talk about the science behind leadership and why leaders make certain decisions, how our brains work, and more importantly, how leaders can manipulate and control and even brainwash people into believing things that are not true, or voting for them based on promises because they tap into certain parts of a person's brain and convince them that these things are true or will happen. And that's really what is happening today, is that we are finding that money is controlling what happens, and people are voting for candidates they believe will do what they want, but instead those candidates are actually doing the bidding of those with the money.
Speaking of candidates, what are your thoughts on the current election that's coming up in November?
Well, again, and I actually do an evaluation of the presidential candidates in my book, 7 Principles of Neuron Leadership. And by the way, that book, proceeds benefit veterans, the U.S. for Warriors Veterans Foundation, only available through a crowdfunding campaign on the Generosity site. And I talk about the candidates, and I mention how there's 3 parts of our brain, and these candidates have been manipulating our emotional and brain by tapping into fear. All right, so we have the Republican candidate, Trump, who's getting people to vote for him out of fear. He's tapping into fear. And then we have the Democratic candidates, both Sanders and Clinton, who are essentially tapping into the emotional instincts of people, the emotional brain, or it's called the limbic system, and messaging to that portion of our brain and getting them to emotionally want to vote.
So either one, it's not good. Like Donald Trump said, he's going to destroy ISIS if he gets elected. What do you think? What's your views on this?
I think if, certainly, again, tapping into what we call the reptilian brain, which is our instinctual brain and fear. So he's using ISIS as a way to build fear in people's mind, that we need to fear them. And so therefore, I will stand up strong and I will defeat them. Now, in order to be able to defeat any enemy, we need to understand who that enemy is, and we also need cooperation from others. We'll need cooperation from other countries. So to say that and then not show statesmanship in relation to, I will do it this way, I will partner with these European countries. Instead, what he's saying is, we don't need NATO. Right? Why are we spending money to help these European countries? Why aren't we just getting out of NATO? Well, you can't defeat ISIS without NATO. So those two things are in dichotomy. And that's where people need to get smart and look at what he is saying, but also how he intends to carry out what he says he'll do.
Now, when you say reptilian brain, what exactly do you mean by this?
There are three parts of our brain. The reptilian brain is our oldest brain, and it's called that because reptiles only have that brain. They don't have the other parts of the brain. And this reptilian brain was the oldest brain from an evolutionary standpoint, and it responds to its instinctual motivations: fear of loss, fear of harm, and also it responds to fight or flight situations. You're either going to fight someone or you're going to run away and fight. And that part of our brain also does not respond well to the written word, but only to pictures and to tactile stimuli and so forth. So by telling stories and emotionally getting people worried about things, that's how candidates, for example, can cause fear in people's minds, into the reptilian brain, and get them to believe that they are the ones who can get rid of that fear.
Do you believe that the royal family and the presidents are all interrelated? There's definitely interrelationships happening in many factions, and it really comes down to, as I mentioned earlier, those who are in power are those who have not only the most money, but they also have the most connections. And here again is where that instinctual brain can do more harm than good. And my advice to those people would be, get out of your instinctual brain. Stop worrying about and being in fear about loss, about losing $1 here or $1 there, or about this potential or that potential. And instead, use your logical brain, your neocortex, and look at how those things can be avoided, not by gut instinctual reactions made from fear, but instead chess moves. Look at it from a chess move perspective. How many moves ahead can you begin to think? Now, the president of the United States, does he have someone higher above him that tells him what to do? What are your views on this? No question. I think we all believe that the president of the United States has all the power. And in fact, you and I have all the power, and we don't even realize it. We do? In a great book called The Coming Jobs War, Jim Clifton talks about this. He's the CEO of Gallup, as in people who take the polls. That candidates, senators, congressmen, and even presidents fear what you and I think.
and we tell them what we think in a poll. So they are beholden to our opinion. And that's why it's critical for us to voice the right opinions, because they will listen to our opinions because they fear either they don't get reelected or their party doesn't get reelected. That's, currently today, that's Obama's fear. He, instead of looking at Republicans or conservatives as potential allies that he can work with and reach across the aisle and learn how to negotiate with, he instead blames them for all of the problems and almost says that half of Americans are in the wrong camp and that their beliefs are wrong. When instead, perhaps, if we were all to look at how we can cooperate together, we might be able to accomplish so much more.
Do you think globalization, like one world order, is coming?
I do know that there are conspiracy theorists who talk about the one world order and globalization. If there really is a group of people or an organization who can actually do that, I would, even though I might not agree with it, I would have to commend them for being able to pull off a miracle, because there are so many different opinions. There are so many different agendas. If you look at the different economies across all the different countries, if you look at, the differences of opinions just in our country, for someone to figure out a way and to actually orchestrate a way to create a one world government that actually cooperates together, I don't think that's possible, because there are too many different opinions and agendas you would have to figure out how to manipulate. So if they can do it, congratulations, but I don't know how that could be done.
Well, it would have to be done through all kinds of false flag attacks and fear and backdoor deals, I would think, to do that. Have you heard of the group called the Bilderbergs?
Yes, definitely.
And apparently, like what I've read, like I've researched it, and they said that Hillary Clinton will be the next president of the U.S. What are your views on the Bilderbergs and that she might be the president?
Well, no question. Again, I think it's because there are those who are in power, have potential losses in relation to money and their assets, and so they are trying to again manipulate either elections or manipulate people's opinions, etc. There's also the International Monetary Fund. So this is really what is, if you want to talk about a world order, it's really a world economy. And recently, China petitioned to become the 7th reserve currency, meaning that currency can be used for international transactions, including oil and gas trades. They've been trying to get that done for quite a number of years. That's why we saw the yuan being manipulated recently, that caused issues with our stock market. So if there is this world order, that's the key to this is going to be the international financial, international monetary fund and international financial trades, especially when it comes to oil and gas and energy trades. That's going to be the only way they can really orchestrate this.
Back in the late 80s and 90s, the Soviet Union, they fought in Afghanistan, and how come they were not able to take out Afghanistan back then? What was wrong? What went wrong?
Afghanistan is almost an impossible place to have a war. It's because of the terrain, the type of country, and the ability for the Afghanistan Taliban or whoever it is that you're trying to fight. It's almost impossible to bring them out into the open. They can hide in so many different areas. Very difficult terrain to get into. We found that out with our military. operating in Afghanistan. We would make some advances and then we would lose some ground just because it's so difficult to fight a war there. Russia discovered that and realized that the geography and the tenacity of those people make it almost impossible to win. And we discovered that ourselves when we went in. We weren't fighting the Afghanistan people, but we were fighting the Taliban. We were fighting terrorists in that case.
In 2011, they said that they killed and shot Osama bin Laden. What are your views on this? Was he already dead, or is there something more to it than meets the eye?
This is a difficult topic because I have some knowledge from behind the scenes, again, within the special warfare community. And so I can only iterate that there is some speculation coming from some individuals and quite a bit of very controversial information related to what really happened there. We do know that SEAL Team 6, a number of operators from SEAL Team 6 were assigned to go take out Osama bin Laden. And then it becomes suspect because the body was never validated. They said they took DNA, however, there was no international body, United Nations, etc., that validated that Osama bin Laden was actually there and was actually killed, and that was his DNA, because they disposed of the body at sea, so they say. And there is some speculation that there were some members of SEAL Team 6 who began to question whether or not this really was Osama bin Laden, or this was orchestrated in order to get another Democrat election win in the election year. And a few months later, in August, a number of those SEAL Team 6 operators were aboard a helicopter in Afghanistan that was sent on a mission. And a number of books written on this, but very, very suspicious. The helicopter was a flying bus. It was never a helicopter SEALs use. The 7 Afghans that were supposed to be on that mission were changed minutes before the mission. That never happens. They were sent into a danger zone they shouldn't have gone into. Their craft was painted with radar from above for many, many long minutes. That all these things should not have happened on any mission, and all of them were killed. All of them were killed. So what's the truth? I don't know. But I do know there are people out there who feel that all of these incidents, situations were extremely questionable and perhaps should be looked into more deeply.
Do you believe that, what's your views on when they said that Osama bin Laden was actually a CIA agent in the 1980s called Tim Osman?
I heard that one before too. There's scant evidence on that. So I would say we need to see more evidence on that. I don't know if we can say CIA agent, but there's always been speculation as to whether or not we knew the Japanese were going to attack Pearl Harbor and let it happen so we could get into the war. A necessary evil. Did the same situation happen in 9/11? Something similar? Who can say? There are those that believe that may be the case, and allowed us to make dramatic changes from an NSA perspective in how we handle security here, and also propelled us into very expensive long-term war that those who build weapons and want to be in wars obviously benefited economically. So who knows?
Do you think former President George Bush had foreknowledge of 9/11 on that day?
Don't know. Again, I think there are some people who speculate on that. It could have been similar to the theories around the World War II Pearl Harbor incident. certainly are a lot of suspicions that happened that day, especially in relation to the evidence around the attack on the Pentagon. A lot of questionable evidence regarding whether there, really was a plane and how it hit, and the type of damage that was done in relation to what they said caused it. It's just a lot of experts come forward and question that this doesn't look correct, but no one so far has presented enough evidence to say that anything definitive like that could be correct.
What do you foresee happening in the near future? Do you see like a big Armageddon type scenario? Are we that close?
We are always that close. No question, we are always that close. What we have now is the ability for nuclear or biological near Armageddon, but certainly dramatic loss of life in either case, because nuclear devices can be put into backpacks, and it's becoming easier for them to be transported. Someday it's possible they could evade detection. Additionally, biological weapons. I wrote about this in my book, The Eagle and the Snake, about the Soviet Union hid a massive biological weapons program, violation of treaties for decades all across Russia. And those scientists, after the Soviet Union went away, disappeared. Some of them turned up in Iraq, and that's what spurred concerns about WMDs. We don't know where a lot of those biological weapons or capabilities went, but they were seriously dangerous. If a terrorist group or a rogue nation gets their hands on these things, they could take out millions and millions of people before we could do anything about it.
I've read some stuff, some documents that said ISIS is very close to having them. They have them now. Is this a reality, or is this just some fear-mongering theory?
I've not heard any definitive evidence in that respect. However, I wouldn't dismiss it outright. I think there is certainly that possibility. And again, if they are able to either persuade, and they're very good at persuading people, as we have seen, if they are able to persuade former Soviet bioweapon experts, or perhaps in some way manipulate them, and then get this information, they're very well funded. So it is quite possible they could develop these things and weaponize them and find a way to distribute them.
How come Japan, we never hear Japan having ISIS in there? I read somewhere, I can't remember where, that apparently Japan doesn't have no ISIS members. Like in Japan, there's no ISIS in there. Have you heard anything about this?
We haven't heard anything coming from Japan in that respect. I think a lot of it is cultural. There's a very different culture there. And I also believe that culture has a far better ability to educate their people, especially their younger people. They do a very good job of educating their populace. And when a populace is educated, it is much more difficult to brainwash them. It is much more difficult to manipulate them. And that's a two-edged sword here in the United States, because there are factions, politicians, who would prefer that we have a dumb society so that they can easily manipulate them and coerce them and brainwash them into voting for them. The other side of that, the two-edged sword, is that they could also be potentially manipulated and brainwashed by other factions who might want them to become terrorists.
Do you think that China's ever going to want the money back from the United States? And if they don't get it, do you think they'll go to war to get the money?
No, I don't think they will. I think they are already not physical war. They are in an economic war, and they will use their military might to defend their economic war moves. They are already doing that. So we're seeing that again with the gas deal they did with Russia and their manipulation of their currency so they can become a reserve currency with the IMF and so on. In their minds, I believe, they have already written off the trillion and a half they are owed, or most of it. And they're thinking now that it will be more economically beneficial to them to begin to utilize their yuan in the same way we utilize our dollar for energy and gas trades. I talk about this in Cold War III. I predicted many of the moves they would make. I predicted what they would do with their yuan. I predicted how it would affect our stock market. I have 5 more predictions that I am very convinced will come true, that are in the book, that talk about what their next moves will be and how we need to be prepared, us personally, our own personal bank accounts, but also the United States.
Why if Russia wants the North Pole? What would be the reason that they want the North Pole?
Putin has done a magnificent job of locking up about 1 trillion tons of oil and gas in the Sea of Okhotsk in the Arctic, and also across the Lomonosov Ridge, which runs from Russia all the way across the North Pole, all the way over to Greenland. Another 1 trillion tons. It's now more accessible to extraction and mining, if you will. And there's also plankton that's now coming, spurring fisheries and so forth. So there's food up there, there's minerals, gold, silver, uranium, you name it, all across there, and tons of oil and gas. So riches, these are spoils, and he wants to lock up that whole area and the routes, because those routes are becoming more used. Whether you believe in global warming or not is immaterial. The truth is, the ice is melting. Otherwise, we can't go from 6 shifts to over 1,000 ships in less than a decade going through that route. You cannot deny 1,000 ships going through there, regardless of the way it happened. Putin understands that, and he can now mine those minerals, and in doing that, he owns monopoly board pieces, Boardwalk and Park Place up in the Arctic.
With all our high-tech gadgetry, weaponry, is there a way to defeat Putin and, well, Russia and China, or is there no solution to this at the current
defeat him? And I do talk about that in my Cold War III book. Talk about the technology I mentioned earlier that the Naval Research Labs has developed. It can convert salt water, ordinary salt water, into any kind of fuel. Jet fuel, rocket fuel, diesel fuel, unleaded gasoline, and liquid natural gas. And it's new, but with a concerted effort and investment behind it, in less than a decade, perhaps even as near as 5 years from now, it could become a way to make all of the natural resources that Russia has, as well as Iran and China, become far less valuable, because we could build one of these anywhere there's ocean. We don't need to have these deposits in the ground anymore. We could begin to create lower cost fuel. It will lower what we call upstream costs, so the oil and gas hit, and not fight it. It will lower their costs. And it's plug and play compatible with their entire downstream, the way they deliver the gas. And it could create millions of jobs and trillions of dollars to our economy while defeating our enemies.
I have a few questions for my guests. But where did the Afghanistans get the weapons to fight the Russians for 10 years? From where?
CIA, the U.S. CIA.
So you see, it seems like the CIA funds everybody, and they turn everything upside down, and then the next thing you know, they create more monsters than anything else, just like they created ISIS.
Sometimes what they do turns out great. In those cases, we probably don't even hear about it, and their moves have been brilliant. In other cases, especially Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, as I mentioned, not so well.
What do you think is the key to defeating ISIS once and for all?
There's two ways you can defeat an enemy. You can defeat an enemy with might. And that is one way, and I don't believe that's going to be effective. I don't believe you can defeat ISIS by trying to go to war with them, because there's no central area you can go fight. Certainly we can send our ground troops in where they have concentrations and we can mitigate the problem, but the only way that we are going to really turn the tide is if we change attitudes. We need to begin to do what they do, but only better. They use propaganda, if you will, or they have a passion and a purpose, and that passion and that purpose resonates well, especially with younger people. And especially when we see some of the manipulations and some of the things that large countries are doing that are questionable. And we have questionable as well as leadership that is not consistent and strong, then it's easier for those who are not being led well to be led better by someone else. So we need to have better leadership. That's what I talk about in my 7 principles around leadership. If we can become better leaders and impart a better message and use neuroscience to speak directly to those who may be manipulated or controlled by others and impassion them to do the right thing, we win.
We win. Yeah, that is a very smart way of thinking. Speaking of which, why did they take out Muammar Gaddafi? What did he do that was so bad? Like for so many years they left him there. Is it to create some kind of power vacuum for ISIS?
No, one reason. The exact same reason they took out Saddam Hussein. He threatened to go off the petrodollar and stop accepting U.S. dollars for oil and instead accept gold. Because he said he was going to defect from the petrodollar, we took him out.
Wow. Do you see any other leaders in the near future that they want to take out?
Al-Assad, we already did that. He was going to, and really is, begin to accept rubles. He has a close relationship with Putin. So that's why we wanted to take out Al-Assad. We, in all of our moves, are alienating the Saudis, the Saudi Arabians, who, in doing so, control $750 billion in U.S. assets that they've got in U.S. dollars and a very large amount of the oil and gas trades, trillions of dollars of oil and gas trades. So not a good move. That's what happened in Iran. This is not about nuclear weapons in Iran. It's got nothing to do with nuclear weapons. It's everything to do with the Iranians threatening to no longer accept U.S. dollars for their oil trade. That's the deal. As they begin to start selling oil again, it will be done with U.S. dollars. That's what was really negotiated.
Wow, that's a lot of information tonight. We've come up to about the end of the show. Is there anything you would like to add? And would you like to tell us your website for my viewers so they can go and buy your books?
So the website is Craig, C-R-A-I-G, Reed, R-E-E-D, wcraigreed.com. And please help us help veterans and their families. The proceeds for the 7 Principles of Neuron Leadership book will benefit the Us for Warriors Foundation. This foundation is dedicated to helping veterans. None of the directors are paid. None of the money is wasted. It goes directly to where it should. And this book will help us help veterans and their families. So please go to the website and look for that book, The 7 Principles of Neuron Leadership, and pledge, if you will, please, so that we can help veterans.
Well, that's wonderful. Any final thoughts before we end the show?
Yes, I'm hopeful that people will begin reading this book and take it to heart, because in this book there are wonderful ways imparted by some tremendous leaders, including former Deputy Secretary of Defense, 2 Secretaries of the Navy, the Executive Officer of the Coast Guard, CEOs, and many, many others, that tell us how to be better leaders. And we need, especially the young people of the world, to take the responsibility and lead us all to a better future.
Well, that's wonderful, Mr. Reed. We want to thank you for coming on the MnRTV show. It's greatly appreciated. Sorry for the delay. It's just, but sometimes technology doesn't work.
Not a problem. I really enjoyed it, and wonderful questions. Really appreciate it.
And we hope to have you on our show soon again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So have a good night, and God bless you.
To you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Well, we had a wonderful show tonight, didn't we?
Oh yes, I'm glad we had him on. Right there, Robert.
Oh, it's like a world of information. It's just like all the answers made a lot of sense, and we learned a lot. We hope you viewers learned a lot tonight by having a guest on, William Reed. Even though we had a little delay, but that's technology for you, isn't it?
Yes, it's normal. It's normal. Technology is like that. But please do like, comment positively, if you could, positively, and share this show so that the whole world knows the truth, because we want to get the truth out there. That's why we're doing this show, right?
That's right. Exactly. Any final thoughts?
No, the thoughts are that I'm glad we did a show. It's good. It's nice. Everybody on Chatango, thank you very much for tuning in right there.
Exactly. We want to thank you guys for tuning in on the show. And we'll be back next week with another great guest, as we always do on the MnRTV show. We always try to get different types of guests for different types of subjects. And next week's going to be pretty interesting also. So God bless you all, and thank you for coming on the MnRTV live show. See you next week. God bless you all.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. You people are the greatest. Don't you ever forget that. And we'll be back next week. Have a good night. Thank you all there.
Thank you.